Welcome to another episode of Happiness How with Winko Chow. I'm your host, Wing Commander Satyendra Chauhan, aka Winko Chow, and I'm an air veteran and a resilient lifestyle coach from Bangalore, India. Today, we are conversing with a very beautiful, attractive, from inside and outside, queen like guest, all the way from Accra, Ghana, an artist, a lecturer, a curator, and multidisciplinary function, Rania Odaymat. Well, now going further, as you have,
Okay.
as you have been, can you hear me there?
Yes, yes, I
Okay,
can hear
my
you.
my screen was freezing a bit, courtesy the technology which is affected by the weather gods. So so we are in a show which kind of looks at addressing the issues of challenges pertaining to negativity brewing among the youth who are in the workspaces of various professions, high pressure jobs, in the high flung cities and all those things, and we always intend to bring a smile on their faces, a sparkle in their eyes, and a cheer to lighten their moods. So I'm very sure when people look at you, they get the same feeling like I get, you know, a mm, godlike mystery woman and a queen right in front of them.
Oh God.
And yes, while I'm speaking of that, it reminds me of Game of Thrones. Yes. Oh yes, you remember, you resemble, some queen like personalities there. So just tell us a little bit more about your background. Do you have some lineage, which is coming from those uh, big people in that part of the world? Like, I come from a lineage of
Ah,
somebody called as Prithviraj Chauhan, but yes,
uh-huh.
I have become a very humble servant today. So,
Yeah.
but you still have that aura of that, typical queen-like aura. So I would
Oh
want to
my
know
God.
more about it.
Well, not to my knowledge, and again, depends on which family tree that
Mm-hmm.
you go to, because it's if it's on my father's side,
Mm-hmm.
it's from Turkey. If it's on part of my mother's side, it's from all Syria. And then
Mm-hmm.
my sister did DNA test once,
Oh.
and we've got yes, we've got African genes and North Africa. We've got Middle Eastern from areas around Russia, Mongol, and Far Eastern. So I mean, who knows? And I don't really care about trying to. I think as individuals, we're all so connected, and most of us are such a mix of so many things. Like every single time I visited India, so many people just talk to me in Hindi and assume that I have to understand, and then I'll go to China and they think I'm Chinese mixed.
Oh.
And so it's very strange, it's very strange. Same thing in Japan. They thought I'm mixed, Japanese mixed. So I don't know. It's
To,
I
to
don't know
me,
how to
to me,
explain
to
that.
me, to me, you
I
look
guess
Russian also. So,
again, this is something. Yes, I've been. So
so yes, yes. No, the idea was not to put you in any spot there. Uh, yes, I know. And while I was doing my research, like I said, I found out you were a lecturer, and you were founder of Aquabytes. Aquabytes, which was an idea of contemporary creative welcome for creative exchanges for your imagination, where you ascend the human element and integrate into shapes of human to become something of value. Would you like to share a little more about Aquabytes with us?
yes. So Aquabytes was not actually, it was just a project. I'm one of
Okay.
the founding members of the Beyond Collective. I'm just
Yes,
one of
yes.
the founding members, an
Hmm.
art collective in Accra,
Okay.
in Ghana.
Hmm.
Aqua Bites was one of the exhibitions that I curated,
Hmm.
and it started. And as you mentioned, it was supposed to be a creative welcome
Hmm.
and collaboration.
Hmm.
That's what. And Bites, why? Because a lot of the process was based on digital connections and chain reactions,
Hmm.
and the contemporary language of creativity. Where we were, as I was looking for a theme for our exhibition, I get a call from a friend of mine who's an artist in Lebanon,
Hmm.
Jean-Marc Nahas, who calls and or sends me a message and says, I need to connect to different types of creatives. I need to get out of this
Hmm.
creative pool I'm stuck in. I feel that I'm just churning the same ideas again and again. And how would it be different to create
Hmm.
outside of my environment? And part of our mission in the Beyond Collective is to promote creative exchanges and collaborations, because we believe that in societies where we don't have enough infrastructure, the power of growth through collaboration is
Hmm.
much higher than through working on your own.
Hmm.
So I shared that message with the members of the collective and said, what do you guys think of, this fits with our mission of, would you be interested in collaborating and on this exhibition with this guy? And everybody was like, yes, of course, we're super interested. Let's see what kind of language we can use. Let's see what we can create together.
Hmm.
Let's see how we can all be changed by this experience. And so this is where that specific exhibition came from, and the ideas behind it.
Great. So let me clear some air, which is clear for me also that yes, the the goddess like the queen like Rania Odaymat is
Of course.
very much a human, creative person, a fashion stylist, and a podcaster who's just started a new podcast, Creative in Accra, and she also is into various contemporary and I would call it simple jewelry made out of nothing. She dwells into photography, mixed media, and I know she's much more technically oriented that I am, and working in the field of various art curation. She also is founding members of Beyond Collective. Tell us something about this idea of podcast. Being in the creative field, I'm very sure you had your hands full with everything. So how
Yeah.
how did you think of coming up with an idea of creating and starting or becoming a podcaster? Was it just a passion like it is for me, or is there much more a larger purpose?
It was synchronicity, I think, because
Hmm.
during the lockdown,
uh,
and for
uh,
some,
Rania, just a moment. Yeah, there's some internet issues. Yeah, yeah, you can go ahead.
yeah,
You
yeah,
there is our
yeah,
voices are
yeah.
oh, as I speak. Just a moment. It is jeering. Yeah, it's okay. It's good now. Please,
It's
please go ahead.
good
Sorry to
now.
interrupt you.
Okay, don't worry, don't worry. So I think it was more like what I experienced as synchronicity. For some time before, around the lockdown and a little bit before, my intuition kept telling me, that voice that you get, a change is gonna come. I need to change. I need to change something.
Mhm,
And then when the lockdown happened,
mhm,
obviously I faced obstacles in terms of my work, because people couldn't move. There was no mobility. Doing the creative coaching is it's much more challenging because of that. There's a greater need to support people, but then their movements are restricted.
mhm,
They're facing more struggles. So And also with the Beyond Collective, we were facing issues that we hadn't faced before, such as how do we communicate and brainstorm on digital platforms? It was creating more misunderstandings. It was interfering with the process that, in a way that we had not experienced before, because we had built a process that worked for us over the years. So with all of that, I felt that, and also being sensitive to the energies around me. This time carries a lot of destructive energy. It carries a lot of negative energy. And the only way I know to counteract that is with an energy of aliveness and life, which is what the creative energy is. The creative energy is, to me, on the same frequency as the energy of life and aliveness. So I felt that, yes, because of that, it is even more important to create. It is even more, but I have to look at it from a different perspective, from a way that I can do it even in lockdown, or if this issue, if the changes, we don't go back to where we were at, which I felt, we were going towards. And then as I was thinking that, I followed London Real because I felt that they were providing much needed perspectives
Okay.
to the situation. And then I received this email
Mhm.
telling me about the broadcast yourself. Before that, I'd never thought, I was going to be a broadcaster, but I knew I was going to change and I was ready for that change. And so after getting that email, I started considering it. And by really thinking deeply about it, I realized that I can bring in so many of my own skill sets and adapt them into this new identity that I'm having as a podcaster, whether it's the work that I do as a fashion stylist or in performance, the performance art part, through dress and visual communication, whether it was my work as a lecturer, as a coach, as a poet, as a writer. I could bring it into eventually the podcasting, whether it's all the work that I do as a creative, thinking outside of the box, encouraging and supporting other people to be more creative, so that they have better tools of dealing with this changed and changing word space, let's say, landscape. And so the more I thought about it, the more I felt, yes, it does align with what I'm doing. And it's just a way for me to expand my platform, the breadth and range of what I do, while adding a few more elements, which I learned in the course about, the technical aspects or other aspects of how to be a podcaster, how to set up your podcast, etc.
Okay. So, like I was saying, in the run up to this conversation, uh, while I was doing that small little research of mine, where it came out that you believe the art is the daughter of creativity and mother of progress. The a very interesting thing that you bring out is the sensitive energies around us. So, do you think your work, your creative work, in terms of whatever that you're doing, your art form or your contemporary creative styles which accommodate the changing norms, mm, there is this negativity in those corridors of creative circles that you wanted to address to from this podcast, which is happening quite a bit.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think that my energies are better used being proactive and not
Okay,
reactive. A
great.
long time ago, I think it takes so much energy to fight something, but unless I'm willing, I am someone who's willing to be in a fight and to die fighting for something I believe in. But so many times, I think we're very fast to react and to fight when you don't need to. That same energy,
Hmm.
if you use it from a place of love and from a proactive perspective, has much more power. Build something else. Don't fight this. Allow it to be and just build an alternative, build something else. It's a better use of your energy, because while fighting, you're staying in that circle of negativity. It's bound to affect you. And then you have to process it. And you have to, constantly be in that element of trying to get rid yourself. Why? You're engaging with that. You keep on putting yourself in a situation where you're engaging with that. I don't want to engage with that. I'm going to do something else. And let there be two voices.
Excellent. And if I'm trying to read between the lines, what it also implies is that you are kind of recycling your own energy, and which is already negative. And whereas if you are involving yourself in some creative process, like you said, you're proactive, which is, which is nice, fresh, and at a much higher level of frequency than what your negative energies probably would be. So while we do think of this, and like you said, uh, why not think of positivity? Why not think of cooperation instead of that competition and whatever the negative aspects are around us? So now I come back to my previous question of this aspect, mm, of maybe the competition, some bit of competition, how it is back home there. you know like we all, we've heard small little creative work happening here and there, except for Europe, which is on world map in terms of creativity. So how good or bad is the competition in terms of creative world in Africa or in that part of region?
Okay. Yeah, I can't speak for all of Africa. I'm in Ghana.
Okay.
Africa is a continent. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to speak about my own experience in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think we're big enough as a creative industry to have, of course, I mean, competition does happen, but I don't give too much attention to it. I think we've been privileged with a group of other creatives. As I mentioned, my creative tribe or family, the people with whom we created the Beyond Collective, the people, and beyond that collective, the people we deal with. I choose not to deal from a place of competition. Or if it is, then we know and we're laughing about it, and it's a game, it's deep play. It's not, I don't think that, and so many of the people around me, the creatives around me, uh, know and connect to the fact that ultimately, there is much more power when we raise each other up, and we can all get, and even on an individual level, you get much more powerful and stronger than by worrying about what somebody else is doing, or out creating somebody else, or feeling, somebody stole your idea, which can happen, or didn't give you the credit for it, which can happen again. But you're a creative. If you can't fight that, assert that, speak it out, move on, create on. Don't, that's, so I think I'm very fortunate in that we worked long and hard amongst each other. We're able to have the difficult conversations. We're able to embrace the perspectives. We've created this culture. Of course, it is not in every aspect of creative life in Ghana, but at least in the environment that I deal with most of the time, and the type of people, when I'm thinking of collaborating, I will gravitate towards the people, the creatives who see things that way, who, you can't collaborate with somebody who doesn't believe in collaboration, in the power of collaboration. Or if I believe that by collaborating, it's me against you, obviously we're not going to be able to get to the next level or build something that is greater than both me and you, where you can get something, I can get something, and there's something left over for
Correct.
others, and to inspire something new.
Absolutely. And you know what mm, what it actually brings to me is, instead of if it is I and you, it is we and others. It certainly is much better. Like yesterday, I was in a conversation with a few of the coaches, and the best thing was brought out was, if we can think of looking at people around us. We're all talking these days, we're talking of self love, we're talking of self exploration, we're talking of things. Yes, we all need to grow, but how about thinking of people around us? So that will be a very big takeaway for all the artists who are looking at understanding what is cooperation, what is collaboration. It is actually talking of we than I and you. Yes. So tell us something about the present times. You know, your first-hand account of how challenging have been the present times for you, your peers, or from the perspective of an artist, a curator, and a coach. And does it affect the morale of, if not the people, if the team?
Of course it does. I mean, already the life of an artist can be filled with struggle and challenges because there's not enough institutional support and again, cultural support for the
Mhm.
arts. So to start with, I think many artists struggle in that environment, have to work really hard. So when you add on top of that economic collapse,
Mhm.
political struggle, corona, lockdown, and the fact that a lot of the support, whatever was there, has been retracted. And a lot of, like, if we're talking about musicians, so many have had their concert cancelled. If you're talking about artists, so many residencies, so many exhibitions have been cancelled. So it's very, very tough. I think um, on creatives from that perspective, there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of thinking to be done, to try to see, okay, how is it possible to survive and to grow from that? I personally believe there's always a solution. Just have to think about things differently. On a personal level, as an artist, again, not as a coach, not as, the other things that I do.
Okay.
As an artist, I think uh, I'm very much aware that um, because I'm juggling and I'm doing different jobs, I'm not relying on my art to feed me, and that is a great privilege. So that fear is not uh, controlling me at this moment. And on the contrary, I feel that in times of great stress or tragedy, uh, there's great potential for creativity as well and growth. So in terms of my inspiration, I'm not, I'm excited. I feel that there's a lot of inspiration around me and a lot of purpose. Um, as a as a curator or as a creative coach, let's say as a creative coach, yes, I'm facing more challenges because there's a greater need, but there's less mobility.
Okay.
I cannot reach people the way I could before. And people right now, we're not only talking about their creative process, so many of all that, the fears, the triggers, everything is getting mixed up. And so it's picking those threads apart and trying to make sense of them and to understand them is much more complex. As a curator for the Beyond Collective, again, yes, it is much more challenging because there's not enough funding. The economic climate is much more difficult. There's a layer of difficulty which is about also transferring processes like brainstorming
Mhm.
for ideas, brainstorming together, discussing things together into digital platforms where you have much more potential for misunderstandings and miscommunications between different, especially
Mhm.
if you're talking with a group, not one-on-one,
Mhm.
So again, having to manage these things, having to think of the role of the collective. One thing that has been constantly on my mind is that, okay, how can art be of service to the community?
Wow.
How can art serve,
Mm.
So again, we have a long way to go in terms of adaptation and rebirth from a perspective of the uh, the the NGO. as a fashion stylist, as the creative director, you know, in all those other things. Yes, there are less jobs, but I'm also transferring these skills and adding them to the podcasting. So I'm still, you know, working in that. I don't know whether that answers your question.
No, no, it very much answers my question. Uh, One more aspect, yes, I would be a little explicit, which I wanted to hear, is the human aspect. So, yes, you said you were born and raised a Muslim, you've studied in Jesuits, and you've studied theology. You've raised in a culture and environment which is more, mm, kind of outward bound, and that apparently shows in your work and everything. So does your upbringing or your raising in that kind of environment help you handle your team around, or the organization, and the and your own beyond collective and other aspects?
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, I think whatever your spirituality is, how strong you are spiritually will
Hmm.
trickle down and affect all aspects of your life. To me, that area gives me a lot of strength, and I could say it is what defines my mission
Hmm.
and how I choose to do things. You know, for me, from that perspective, creating is an act of faith. Making a
Okay.
difference is an act of faith
Hmm.
uh, uh, towards myself, towards others, being loving and appreciating the other, appreciating listening to what they have to say, no matter how different or shocking or whatever, and actually trying to look at it from a place of non-judgment, just being present with whatever is being said and whatever experience is being presented. Of course, the I think at the root of that is how I see myself. You know, I see myself as a servant. I see myself as here to serve. I see myself as here to grow. I see myself as here to be the best possible incarnation of who I can be. I see myself here to learn and to sustain that learning and to be constantly and to transfer that learning. I see myself here to love and to connect and to appreciate the miracle of creation, that every miracle of creation that I see, that my mind cannot even fathom, and that has so much to teach me in all its shapes and forms and presentations.
Marvelous. Like I said, with every sentence of yours, my immersion is happening. And what a beautiful way. Please forgive my ignorance, but I've never heard somebody saying, using art to be of service and to be a servant. And oh, there is so much to take from here. While you're so grounded uh, in the spirituality, you also have very, very contemporary and very, very, I would say, very outward bound ideas, where you are talking of, industrial culture, you're talking of the education system, you're talking of otherness. uh, there is this otherness that you were talking just now of, being present for others, or is it got something more? I would like to know a little more, about this, in the present context, in the present, maybe value system, present education system. What is this concept of otherness that you're talking?
Oh, the otherness, I think, you know, I choose to see things from a perspective of whole. We are all incarnations of the same thing, a
Hmm.
part of the same whole. When I talk about otherness, it is trying to that judgment or that thought that wants you to look at whoever, somebody else, as other from you, as separate from you, as and put them. And there's a very big danger in that, whether it's because of ideas. You know what we're saying, like on a global global, like, let's say, landscape, any idea that does not conform to this is considered other, so
Okay.
dangerous, so enemy, and any person.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up, with a lot of, whether you're black, the racism, whether you're brown. I mean, even in India, words, phrases like fair and lovely, and so degrees. And I think these are things that we got from colonialism, from specific power structures, that put into place. So anything that tries to make another person other and lesser is very dangerous, because when you don't relate to another in the same way, then you will allow yourself to behave and to treat them and to lose empathy towards them, which is a very dangerous thing in terms of human experience and human growth.
And I'm seriously impressed, and I would certainly want to ask you one more question there. You said fair and lovely. You know, I don't know. I mean, uh, in an interview, I would be able to think of fair and lovely anytime. Yes, it is part of your profession, but how good is your knowledge about India? You did speak about. You said you've been to India,
Oh
and
yes,
so
I've
is
been
tell.
to India.
Don't tell me all this spirituality is coming from us.
Not all of it, part of it.
Okay.
Part of it, and not only the spirituality, so many things India has taught me, and so many relationships I have. Like that fair and lovely thing came from a friend of ours that who grew up with my sister-in-law and who I've known, all my childhood. During my childhood, we grew up in Ghana, and
Mm-hmm.
she was of Indian origin, and she ended up settling in Bombay.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had a daughter. And while we were visiting her there, and I know her to be a very open-minded person,
Mm-hmm.
and because we know each other, we've grown up. And so once, and her daughter became a teenager, and we were visiting in Bombay, or Mumbai now. And
Yeah.
then her daughter was going out with her friends to the beach. And then our friend says, don't forget to put your sun tanning lotion, don't get too dark and whatever. And I looked at her and said, what is wrong with you? What have you done with my friend? And she said, I don't know what to do. I don't believe in that. But we live in a country where everybody is going to judge her on that. I think it's bullshit. You know how I grew up. I mean, you know how I've been. But I just want the best for my daughter. And no matter what I think, people are going to judge her on that. And so what do I do? And I said, but I understand and I feel for you, but when will it ever change? Is if every person, even the person like you who doesn't believe in that, is doing it because it becomes a vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where it comes from. I have dear beloved people who live in India. I've probably visited 13 times already, or maybe more.
Oh.
And different places. Yes, different places. I love so many things, not only the spirituality, the history, the philosophy, the food, the arts, the crafts, the vibrancy of the culture, the vibrancy of the people, the energy of growth that I feel in the 13 years that I kept going, almost sometimes on a yearly basis. Every year I would feel change. Every year I would feel change and growth. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, that dynamic energy is very inspiring. I don't know whether I've missed anything. Like, I think I went on my own like Indian journey inside my head, and I'm stuck there. So, is this
Excellent.
what you're asking me?
No, even if I wasn't asking, good, I must have achieved something which will be even more treasured. So let me remind you and our viewers that uh, after 13 visits, this is her 14th visit to India. And what she's seeing behind me is all that energy and all that dynamism. You know, you see, it's all colorful behind me. And this is the 13th episode. So we have so much of connect around here. And yes, among all your friends, you can add one more now. All right. So, so while
With
you were talking,
pleasure.
while you were talking of the judgments and the way it is in India,
Yeah.
and yes, I subscribe to that. Not really agree to everything, because I am one person who's brought in a lot of changes. I come from a very orthodox background, very orthodox
Mhm.
background, and we are so-called Rajputs, and we come from
Yeah.
basically an agricultural background, and you know it all. uh, I would want to ask you how, and again, I'm again intrigued here. So how was it growing up for you when you compare this with what is in India, and especially as a girl child? Now I know, I can see it, and I do understand that it is far more, progressive and far more urbanized everywhere around you. But how was it back then when you were growing up, when you were going to school, or you had to go to university and things like that?
In Ghana, you mean?
Yes, in Ghana and otherwise. How was the thought process? What did your mother think about it? Or how did she raise you? Oh, do this, don't do that.
Growing up in Ghana, it was like growing up in a, I guess, in a village. Although in a village from the perspective, not I'm not talking about the your stereotypical or a village as something negative. No,
Hmm. Yeah.
but it was after, yes, because we were relatively like there was no internet in those days. I didn't travel much during my childhood, so it was just probably a few times, a handful of times during until the age of 15, 16, you know. So, and it was our school. I was educated at the only French school in Accra, which
Okay.
was one of a small school,
All right.
and which was in a house, an old house. Um, so, and it was growing up, we had to undergo the first coup d'etat, then the second coup d'etat, the shifting into the Rawlings administration, which actually killed the, for some time, it was very difficult to get anything, meat, bread, whatever. Our parents had to struggle so much for the basic necessities. And then the art scene and the art life, creative life, went so much back because of the curfew and all that situation. All of that kind of cultural life got paused. Um, but we had uh, great connections and great relationships amongst each other, which was very special, and real like conversations and real connections. So, so yeah, but we were, yes, sort of, let's say, excluded, like living in our own space and
Hmm.
not so much in touch with everything that was happening outside.
Okay.
Um, it was only later I traveled to finish my studies, and then afterwards came a time during my 20s, 30s, up until, let's say, the COVID lockdown, where that's been the part of my life where I've traveled a lot. Uh, yeah, and also recently, in the past 15, 20 years, Ghana has, or Accra, let's say, Accra has changed a lot as well.
Okay. So, uh, what I hear is that generally it was not too very challenging, and uh, there weren't much obstacles or impediment in terms of your growing up, and especially here mentally. Uh, Now, after, yeah,
It depends. It
okay,
depends. Like some aspects of it were lovely and good, but other aspects of it, you didn't fit. I didn't feel that I fit, not in my family, not in my environment. So that crisis of identity, I wouldn't say it's. We were. I was trying to answer based on the external, let's
okay,
say, construct you were asking me I felt
Okay.
as a child or
Okay.
growing up.
All right. Okay. Have you seen some serious challenges, or if I may, uh, unconsciously, I would say, because consciously I don't spell out this word, failure.
Oh,
Have you?
yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. So many of them.
Hmm.
When about 17 years ago, I went through depression. I had this big crash, and it was because it's when I realized that I was failing in all the ways that mattered. Although as a child, I had been an A student, and whether I took up arts and sports, I'd always been interested in any of that. For some reason, I loved learning. I loved the pursuit of knowledge. And so I excelled. And we lived in an environment where um, it, it seemed to be the most important thing. And yet I was not happy. I didn't actually feel that success. I didn't actually appreciate all that success. So from
Okay.
that perspective, I didn't know many failures in terms of schooling or martial arts or creating and yet I was very angsty and sad and burdened as a child. So in terms of my well-being,
Okay.
I constantly faced failure. In terms of understanding who I was, I constantly faced failures. In terms of later on, after I got married, in terms of knowing how to be myself, and love another and grow, I was failing. When I had my first child, and then later he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum in a society, in a place where there were no services like support services, or where people could not understand or accept that, I felt like a huge failure. And so that's when I completely crumbled, because yes, on the surface, I was shining and excelling and whatever, but in everything that truly mattered and in how I felt it, I was a huge failure.
Hmm.
And that's where the big change started happening. And it took time, obviously. It made me, go through a period of, first of all, make a commitment, decide, is this it? Or I can't go on. Either I'm gone, or something has got to change. Something has got to give. This, I've tried this. Einstein says you can't keep on doing the same things and expect different results. It's
Very true.
madness to keep on doing. I could not afford to keep on thinking and doing what I had been doing, because no matter how many accolades I got, I was not happy. I did not feel like a success where it really mattered. And so I made the commitment to help myself. And it was only possible when I realized that being my own true self, honoring my own life and my own voice, was to become my priority, no matter what I lost, no matter what criticism I got, no matter the reactions. And that was very, very, very freeing. Because although we're human, yes, I can be hurt by something you say, but it doesn't have the power to destroy me anymore. And it doesn't have the power to direct my action and my choice anymore. Whereas subconsciously, it used to be that way. It was never about, don't let your light shine too much because it might be perceived in this or that way. Don't do this because it's too eccentric, because women don't do that. Don't speak out too much because it can be perceived as aggressive. No, I had to really, really go away, go away. You're there. I hear you. I've seen you, but I'm sorry. You haven't served me well. And I'm not divorcing you. You're always going to be there, and I appreciate you, but you're not the boss of me. There are other entities now, and they have their own opinions, and we have to listen to everyone. You know, my spiritual self, my creative self, my intuitive self, uh, um, you know, all the other interpersonal, you know, all of that, they have a say. And intellectual or, you know, controlled mind, brainwashed society or educational guy, no. You have your advantages. You have your experience, and it's welcome, and you can share it. But you don't make the decisions anymore. You have a board, and you present your whatever you have to the board, and other members of the board also have their opinions.
So while I'm hearing that there was so much of change happening, and I would love to know how did that happen. But and I was trying to do little bit more of listening. Uh, was it after you gotten married? You said you started loving yourself. So
Yeah.
did that event bring out some change, and would you like to share that with us? Besides the other house that
Loving
changed
yourself.
everything. Yes.
Yes, I think you can never loving myself change everything, because I don't think that you can properly love anybody else or truly uh, um, give them uh, what they need um, if you don't love yourself. You can't really understand anybody else if you don't understand yourself. You can't give what you don't have, Satyendra.
Very true.
If I don't have kindness toward myself, am I really going to show you kindness, Satyendra? Or am I going to pretend or think because it's the right thing to do in that circumstance? But you will always be able to know a difference. If I'm judgmental of myself, I cannot be non-judgmental towards you. You will always feel that judgment at one level or another. If I can't give myself what I need, would I truly be able to give and share with you? We're talking about not only finances, everything else.
Right.
If I don't have, let's say 100 rupees, and I find a child who hurts himself and falls and who needs, you know, to buy supplies. If I don't have that money, I cannot give it to him. But
Very
it's the
true.
same thing with everything else. How, if I don't love myself, do you think I'll be able to really love my child in the way that they need, or my husband, or my friend? I don't know it.
Very true.
How can I give it properly? It's all imitation, and imitation is not the same as the real thing.
Very true. So if you had to, let's say, it's difficult to sum it up in one word there, but yes, if you still had to do it, would you call it self-awareness, or the larger aspect of consciousness? What was it that brought the entire change in you, which changed things for you?
I I I don't think it's. I mean, we can talk about it from a perspective of modalities. I don't think there was one modality. I think it was looking at many modalities and taking the ones that worked and the ones I was most urgently in need of at a specific point in time.
Okay.
You know, so or the steps, let's say, whether it's modalities, whether it's steps, whether it's, and it was never just that one thing that I
Okay.
did. It was slowly. It's like, you know, layers and creating that opening inside of yourself to more and more and more. uh, in in terms of ideas or insights, what I would call it, I think whether you call it enlightenment, whether you call it growth, I've
Mhm.
called it all of them, depending on the moment and what I connect to the most, whether you call it consciousness, they're all valid, they're all real, but none of them describes the whole thing. They're all labels as well. It is more than these labels, but also the labels are valid because they simplify things in a way, and depending on the context, one will make a little bit more sense than the other, let's say. But it's a process maybe of expansion and growth. And to me, the greatest insight was when I asked myself this: do I think there are any accidents of life? And when I soul searched and really tried to connect, I don't believe that there are accidents of life. So I don't think that there's any life that I can see, whether it's a person, no matter who they are, what they look like, where they come from, what they're doing, what they believe in, whether it's a plant, whether it's an animal, whether it's sentient or not. I don't believe in accidents of life. And I think that whatever I cannot accept or believe in another is due to my lack of understanding, because I'm not conscious enough or evolved enough or broad enough to see the beauty of it, to understand it. There is work to be done on my side. It's not because that thing or that person is lacking or missing. It is because I still have work to do, because I'm missing knowledge, because I'm lacking in understanding. I mean,
So
they say, you know, to understand everything is to accept everything and to love everything.
yes,
And whenever we find ourselves unable to do that, it means we need to still learn.
certainly, certainly. So while you know, there's been so much of learning, you have unlayered yourself, in the process of learning. What do you see in future? What is still going to drive you, or take you closer to that mission, purpose, or vision that you have for yourself in the coming years?
I think I believe in human life. I believe in human dignity. I believe in growth. I'm very concerned about where we're at right now on a leadership level, on an economic level, on so many levels. I think we have a role to play as human beings. Uh, we need to become the change. And when I think I've sat and thought, you know, yes, what does it mean for me? What is the value of my life? Do I think, is it important for me to save myself at any cost? No, it's not. If the cost of it is that I see you falling and I'm not in a position, I cannot approach you because I'm scared to catch something, that to me it's not worth it, honestly. If the price is building uh, societies where everybody is controlled and masked, and where we're all looking at the other, again, with that otherness, the, the other becomes the enemy, you know, and where we're all scared of each other, and where people want to snitch on each other, and we're under constant surveillance, and whether we're scared because somebody sneezes or does whatever, to me it's not worth it. I would rather die standing, honestly, you know. So until I will keep on, I guess, living and celebrating life and aliveness until I don't anymore. That's the promise during this lockdown. That's the promise that I made to myself, because again, I was asked and I was faced through a lot of conversations with others, but no, you shouldn't do this, and no, but around me more people were dying of hunger and of lockdown than of COVID,
Very true, very true. Only
you
thing
know.
is that,
And
yeah,
so so yeah, embracing being alive and human until I'm not.
very true. And like I was saying, it's only that there isn't much data presently to show how many people are suffering other than the present crisis, and that's how probably we're not aware. So while there is so much that has been a takeaway from this conversation of ours, this lovely conversation of ours for our listeners and viewers and your fans. If you had to share some learning that they would want to carry, budding artists and people who are in that space of you know maybe juggling or grappling with negativity, what would be that one thing you would want them to you know take as a learning from your life?
Con- Connect to your inner creator,
Okay. Hmm.
because your inner creator is the other face of your inner destroyer. It has been very easy for us to connect to our inner destroyer, even if you're not going to be an artist. Whether you have a child, whether you find a creative solution in your business, in entrepreneurship, or in your engineering, your inner creator can open up so much for you. And it resonates with the pulse of everything that is alive, with your cells that are dying and constantly being reborn and created, with a forest which is constantly dying and being recreated, with the water and the ocean, which is constantly in a flux of creation and creativity. There's creativity is that dynamic of creation. I would say, if you need answers, if you want to embrace change, connect to your inner, find the ways to connect to your inner creator. We all have him. The only thing is, do we shut that creator up, or,
Like,
invite him or her or it to be awake?
absolutely. And like I put it across, I say it's only time, that we realize that we part of the same creator actually. We part of the same energy in some
Mhm.
form. And when we realize we are as great, as humble, as pure, as serene, as lovable, as knowledgeable, than with in unison with that creator. So excellent learning there, and I don't know. I can't get enough of this conversation which is happening, but the clock is also ticking. So before we go, would you like to inform our viewers and our listeners if they have to find you, where do they find you? And we would certainly share whatever links that we have with them. But yes, if you would like to tell them.
So on Instagram, it's Rania underscore Odaymat. And then I've just recently, a few days ago, opened a page for my podcast, Creative in Accra.
Hmm.
I've, there's also a Facebook page called Creative in Accra. And my podcast, which you can find on Anchor, on iTunes, and on Spotify.
Excellent, excellent. So before we wind up, I have a page, which is full of so much of learning there. But still, if I had to sum it up, I would like to say that I would want my listeners and viewers to take from here is that principle of internalizing things and a value to whatever that you do, how you do, and why would you want to do. Yes, overlap that with knowledge, with skill, with an attitude, and develop that as an habit. It, like I keep saying, it's all here. So at the end of the day, what we require is to gear up ourselves, and towards the end you already have said it, that uh, it is try to understand that creator within us. So thank you so very much, Rania Udaimat. I hope I am getting your name right this time, and I would
Yeah.
have to practice it even more, I know. So it was lovely chatting with you, and we wish you all the very best in all your endeavors. And I am very sure that in few years from now, I will see you sitting on a throne like this, and and yes, and there would be a lot of people listening to you. Let me tell you, this is that that Johari's hidden window. In the times to come, what you would be doing is spiritual sermons. So, and you are really, we are all work in progress, but while we work in progress, it's always better to share share with people, not necessarily that they would want to embrace it, but yes, uh, there is that ignorance which is there in a lot of us. So, and it's it's only time that you find somebody who can take them there. So once again, thank you so very much for coming on the show, and I'm very sure that this immersing conversation of ours has certainly added value to your time, has certainly uh, been an interesting conversation for you as it has been for me. I'm very sure I enjoyed it, my time questioning Rania, and I'm hoping that she has done that as well. So, till we see you all again, it's bye bye from Rania Odaymat from Accra, Ghana, and me, Wing Commander Satyendra Chauhan, aka Wingo Chow, from Bangalore, India. Do take good care of yourself, internalize, look for that creator, stay happy, stay healthy, and always keep smiling. It's bye bye from two of us. See ya. Keep safe.